Hello, everybody. It's Tommy. Thank you guys for coming. We're going to give it another minute or so here before we kick off the presentation today. And thanks. We'll be getting started in just a second. People are starting to roll in here. I suspect we'll give them like 2 minutes and then we'll get going.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How you doing?
I'm good. Sorry, I had my speakers off.
No problem. See, I can hear you. We're just going to give people like 2 more minutes. Join in.
Sounds good.
Get started presenting. Thank you. Cool. Well, we'll get started and we'll just let people in as they come in. Today, I want to talk to everybody about why checklist programs succeed or fail. We've been doing like a lot of research on this over the last couple of months. And I wanted to sort of share some insights with everybody and give you guys some tips on maybe help make your program more successful, right? So I don't know if anybody here has ever read the book by Atul Gawande, The Checklist Manifesto. It's a super easy read. It's great. It's like I think it may be like 7 hours on Audible to listen to it if you do Audible. But he does an amazing job of like kind of documenting the history of checklists, and he talks about them in restaurants and for pilots and surgeons, and just like it's just a really interesting business book. Much more interesting than a lot of the ones that you end up reading over time. But there's a great quote from him. And the whole, like some of the biggest conclusions he draws is that this has nothing to do with training. You know, whether you're a 15-year-old kid closing a Baskin Robbins for the first time on a Sunday night, or you're a neurosurgeon, like the issue isn't training or education or experience. The issue is complexity in lists, right? That the human brain can only really handle like 3 to 5 details at any given time. And that you just need a reference point to make sure you don't miss any items that you're supposed to do in whatever process it is you're doing, whether you're, prepping a patient for surgery, or you're closing a restaurant, or, getting ready to start serving at a restaurant. So I think this is a great quote about, this is just a great quote. And it really talks to what the checklist was really built to do. So yeah, our brain struggles with complexity. Long, detailed lists messed up. Checklists mitigate human errors because we forget things. And then they're just a visual aid that can help people. And like, I think like a really good example is, how many times have you gone to the grocery store and you knew you needed to get like a green pepper, and then you get in there and you see a friend, and then you're like getting like dazzled by the end caps. Oh, I want to get that. And you're walking around, and then you get home and you forgot the pepper. Like, that is a scenario that happens all the time to people, and especially happens to me constantly. But like, that's a perfect example of why like a grocery list, which is essentially a checklist, is so important, because you just forget those little details. And when we're talking about this on a business level, those little details, like one of the things about checklists that I find super interesting, and I've seen thousands of them in this job, right, is that they don't, like, there's no fluff in them. Like, every item on the checklist is there because we've identified through our own pain and suffering, right, that these are things that are important for safety, for compliance, for readiness, whatever. So there's not a lot of fluff on them, but we need them all done because we know that when we don't do them, it affects speed of service, safety, quality, customer satisfaction, sales, and profits, right? So there's all these things we have to get done, and we need a tool to help us do that, right? Okay, so things that we've seen, like in the real world, right? Increased sales performance. Organizations that are doing, like stores or locations are doing 75% or greater on their checklist execution, have reported sales increases of 5% compared to the stores in the bottom 25%. Same thing with customer satisfaction. In the same chain, 90% higher customer satisfaction. And we've seen that in multiple chains, right? Because when you do your checklists, you catch your own mistakes. And then when your shift starts and people start coming into the store, whatever it is that you do, all of a sudden, guess what happens? You just have a smoother shift. They're not standing by the counter asking people for things that they forgot. Like, things are just happening correctly in the proper time frame, everything that they expect. They just have a better experience. So there's like a real value to doing these things, right? And the ROI of a successful checklist program is increased readiness at the store level, making sure that we're controlling what we can control, especially today when like sales are down, covers are down, prices are up, and the competition is stricter than it's ever been. This is the time to be excellent at what you do, because every poor experience that a customer has, especially if it was due to the fact that you didn't control what you could control within your own four walls, they're not giving people 3 chances anymore because their budget's lower. And so that they're looking for one mess up, and so that they can just decide not to come back for 3 months or a year, So it is so important that, like, we are controlling what we can control. We're getting our readiness right. We're getting our safety and compliance right. And we have tons of examples of where, if the checklist question is looking at something where there might be waste or whatever, like, we have seen increased sales and profits from our real world clients who were just doing the program, and they just focus it on a very specific thing, like real-time labor cost checking, or making sure people were punched out so we didn't have to go through and adjust all their hours, to just the benefits of speed of service and other things that have increased sales and profits. And I say, we've seen ROIs that sometimes end up in the thousands of percents, and you go, well, that's ridiculous. Like, you can make 1,000% ROI, but you have to think about it in the context of our client base, which are multi-location businesses. So if you can save $1, but you save it 1,000 times a day, 7 days a week, 363 days a year, that starts to add up to real dollars, that, like, real numbers versus what people are paying for the platform. It's really easy to get ROIs that end up in the thousands of percents. We had a 100-unit Pizza Hut chain that was saving on average like $12,000 a year by just forcing their employees to check labor costs at different times of day, and then alerting their district managers when their labor was too high, so they could come up with a plan to cut people or do whatever they were going to do. And it was knocking off a couple percentage points of labor, and they were doing it in the off times, like 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock. They weren't doing it like in the middle of the rush. They were checking in those periods where the rush has probably died down, but you haven't necessarily thought to cut people yet. That's when they were making that huge ROI happen. So the goal and the goal that we talked, whenever we meet with clients or we're talking to prospects, everybody always kind of has the same goals. They want increased visibility, increased accountability, and they want just to see the stores operating better. That's what everybody tells us they want when we talk to them. But right, and so that's what people tell us they want. One of the big issues they run into is pencil whipping, right? And it is, pencil whipping is kind of the scourge of our platform, and everyone, not our platform, but like just checklist programs in general, because you get somebody just filling out this checklist, but they're not actually doing the checks, so you don't get any of the operational benefits that you would get from the checklist, number one. But then number two, you're just filling the database with garbage data, and so it makes it really difficult to make good, honest, data-driven decisions, because the data you have is all just like lies, essentially. You know what I mean? So pencil whipping stinks, and I think everybody would love to eradicate pencil whipping if they could, for sure. And by the way, we have spent so much time, like hundreds of hours over like the last decade, just brainstorming how we can like stop pencil whipping. We do have, just to remind everybody, data accuracy scoring. Data accuracy scoring is a series of rules that you can apply to your checklist. And it basically, and by the way, we're the only ones who can do this, but it basically analyzes the checklist as it's being filled out, and it can tell you if the data was accurate or not accurate and the reason why. And it's not a perfect system, but it's really good. And it can look at several factors like duration and geofencing and other things like that to determine if the data is good or bad. And because it can tag the response set, when you're in the dashboards or the reports, you can filter the response set tag to accurate or not accurate, and you can instantly just be looking at accurate data versus not accurate data. And I have a whole PDF on that, and with all the rules in there and the different acronyms and how you set it up. And I will send that out in the recap video for clients. So that will be cool. Obviously, we're very excited about the OpsPhotoAnalyzer that is going to be coming out here in the next couple weeks. It's going to revolutionize how you guys are going to build your checklists, because it's going to just literally, you'll take a picture, you'll configure your question and say, I want you to take this specific picture, and then you'll have business criteria in the question that as soon as the picture is taken, we will send the whole thing off to AI. It'll analyze the photo the person took with your business criteria, and it will come back within a couple of seconds with, this was a pass or a fail. And so this is probably the biggest thing we can do to stop pencil whipping, because photos are the most accurate thing that a person can capture out in the field to allow them to, it's the most accurate question type, I guess is the best way to put it. And the data that comes out of the AI is unbiased. It just looks at what is there and it just judges it, right? And it almost becomes like your babysitter, thing that you would love to be able to do, but no one has time or money to do. It's literally almost a digital babysitter, because it'll stop the person right in their checklist and say, hey, this is what's wrong. You need to go fix it, and then take us a picture that's going to pass. So we can actually drive the real world behavior change, because they can't pencil whip it and just say it was good and not check it. They got to physically walk over there, take a picture, and then the AI will tell you if the picture is good or bad. And so it's going to be a huge benefit, and it has value in every type of form you do. Like, it has value on daily checklists, from looking at, is there any food on the floor in the walk-in, or is there, date labels on whatever product, or looking at a storage room or cleanliness, whatever it might be. You can use this to analyze any kind of photo, but it also would be amazing for audits and inspections as well too, right? So like, you don't necessarily have to send, your field team out to visit every store, because you can just put a checklist out to the stores and say, hey, go take these pictures. And then you can get the AI to score the whole thing. And then you don't necessarily have to send somebody out to every store. And I'm not saying, maybe you don't send out people to your top performing stores. You let them take pictures, but then your bottom performing stores, you still send a person out. But now that person maybe can have a bigger patch, or they can spend more time coaching because they don't have to be, just inspecting every single store all the time. So there's just a huge amount of use cases for this photo analyzer. And as soon as we get something that we can start demoing, which should be hopefully next week, maybe we'll set some meetings and start training you on how to write the criteria and all the things you would need to know about it. But it is going to be a game changer, because it's for the first time ever, we can hold people accountable in real time while they're doing the checklist, versus having to always try to hold them accountable after the fact. So I kind of went through all this stuff already. The biggest thing here is real-time behavior changer, because that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people to do the things correctly so that the shift can run great. And babysitting your stores, really, it's probably one of the hardest things. It's just an impossible thing to do in a big, large, multi-location restaurant chain. There's just not the money or the manpower. And in a lot of cases, the inclination from the people who would have to do the babysitting to want to actually babysit the stores and hold them accountable to doing everything right. And the stores know that there's no supervisor in the store all the time. So they just, they can get away with pencil whipping and doing whatever they want. And so this is hopefully going to solve that in a pretty big way for you guys. Okay, but there are other things you can do besides PhotoAnalyzer to get some return on your investment from your checklist program. And here are a couple of them that are some of our clients that are very successful on the platform have been doing. And I want to sort of share those with everybody so you can take them back to your companies and try to implement them. So first of all, everybody I've seen who's been super successful using the platform and getting good data out of it and getting good results, they have a very specific why they're doing this. It is a core why that's part of their culture. It's part of their business. And it doesn't just drive checklists, it drives their entire sort of ethos on how they operate, right? So you need to figure out what your why is, right? And it needs to be a strong why, and it can't just be about, profits and sales, because the people at the store level, they don't see a lot of that money. So when you say, hey, you're going to make the franchisee more money, they're like, I don't care. He should pay me more money, right? Or whatever. They don't necessarily care about those kinds of things. So that why's got to be something else. That's not just about increasing sales and profits for executives. It's got to be we can't get delisted from the stock market, or we can't, it's got to be something huge. And you got to think about that for your own company. Also, you need to understand what's the why of every form you're doing, and also kind of understand what's the why of the question, right? So why do we do a temperature log, right? It's because we're frequented by a lot of older people, and some of those people have cancer and, whatever, we can't afford to get them sick because they have reduced immune systems. So or we can't afford to get kids sick. So we do these temperature logs because we know we have certain food items that we have to nail every time and have them correct, not only for taste and quality, but for safety, whatever it is. But you have to kind of just whenever you build a checklist or a form anyways, you should understand what the why is. What is the goal of this? What are we going to use this data for? So you can communicate that in your training to whoever's going to be filling it out, right? Also, you should try to explain the benefits of doing the checklist and filling out these forms at a level that the store people can appreciate. Because once again, they don't care about sales and profits and all these highfalutin goals. How does this directly affect me in my job? And one of the easiest ones is you just have an easier, funner time at work. When everything's set up correctly and everything's humming and you can just work your shift, make your money and get out of there, and you don't have a bunch of customers complaining and all this drama, that's actually a huge benefit that like you should enjoy. Like that might be a benefit you could use. I'm sure you can use AI to come up with more, but that's just a quick example of one. The other thing that people that I've seen that have been very successful with their checklist programs and getting an ROI is they use their auditing program, because everybody's pretty much doing either a third-party audit or a monthly or quarterly audit of their stores. They use those audits to check. They go into the auditors are trained to go into Ops Analytica, pull a specific report, and go and check their checklist compliance. And that's a really easy way. That's a really easy way to manage this without having to be on the guy, to be on every store and in your brand every day going, where's my temperature log for 11 a.m.? You can look at it more from a perspective of like we have one client who they have to have, they have to have all of their temperature logs done over a 30-day period, right? And so like you can just have the auditor go in and look at the report and they can go check the last 30 days and they go, okay, you're missing 6, you failed the question. Like that's how some people do it. And by the way, we've got SteriTech and some of these other auditing firms. They know, they get trained in how to log into Ops, and they have the what am I trying to say? They have the store manager log them into the tablet, and then there's a saved report that they created at corporate, and then they know to go to this report, go open up this saved report filter, click on it, and it instantly shows them the last 30 days. So it's not like you can't do this with third-party auditors. They're absolutely comfortable doing this, and they end up working with all the different platforms actually. But so, use our reports and then use your auditing program to hold these stores accountable. And a lot of times it's not like, it's always like in the last 30 days or in the last 2 weeks, did you do all your checklists? It's kind of how they generally structure those questions. Another thing we've seen that have brought a lot of success, right, in managing a good checklist program is including Ops Analytica compliance in the employee bonus calculation, right? So, managers are going to get bonused on labor costs, on sales, on food costs, maybe on customer satisfaction scores, audit scores. Well, you can just as easily add one more component to that bonus equation, which was Ops Analytica compliance. And now that's like another thing that they have to be thinking about on how much of a bonus am I going to get at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. It's one more thing I got to manage. And it provides a nice positive incentive to getting people to do what they're supposed to do, right? And in the franchise organization, there's other ways you could also handle that too. It depends on your FDD, but like you could say, hey, we give like additional marketing support for people who have high checklist scores or high audit scores, or you can come up with other ways to incentivize people, since you obviously don't pay franchisees, to reward the franchisees and the stores for getting good audit scores and doing their checklists on a daily basis. We have one chain who has they call it something different, but it's essentially a missed checklist report. So going back to when an auditor comes in and looks at their checklist and see if they've done them all over the last 30 days or whatever, they have an actual form that they have in place that allows them so that if they miss a scheduled checklist and it's gone, it's off the schedule, they can never get it back. There's a really quick, easy form that they fill out, and it's really for their like food safety log, which they do 4 or 5 times a day. And it just says like, what schedule did you miss? If they have multiple forms on there, they can have multiple forms. It's like, what form did you miss? What schedule did you miss? Why did you miss it? And then they have some like They have some like multiple choice to just kind of like make it easy. And then there's an area for a description. And when that auditor comes in, what they need to see is every checklist done for the last 30 days. And if one's missing, they need to see one of these missed checklist reports for the one they missed. So let's say they do one a day, there's 30 days, there's 28 of them that were done. They should expect to see 2 missed checklist reports in there as well. And that's kind of how they use this to manage it. And it's just this extra accountability layer that says, hey, we're paying attention to this and we're going to demand to see it. And I think one of the other rules they have is it has to be filled out within 24 hours of the missed schedule. So you missed today's 11 a.m. one, you can't fill it out at the end of the month and be like, oh, hey, yeah, you know, I missed it like 3 weeks ago. It's got to be filled out within 24 hours of the missed schedule. So that's how they use that. And then I guess just to wrap this up, right? The issue's always been with these checklist programs is holding people accountable in real time to get these checklists done. It's incredibly hard to do with a large multi-location operation. Nobody's staffed to do it. You know, your franchise business consultants, your district managers are managing multiple stores, and they're generally in the stores helping people, guiding, coaching, assisting. So they don't have time to just sit down at a computer all day and look at what everyone's compliance is. And then oftentimes, especially in a franchise organization, they might not meet with that franchisee for months. And everybody knows that feedback has to be real time. It has to be succinct. It has to be accurate, all those things. So that's really been the gap that has prevented a lot of organizations from getting the ROI, which is the better operations and the great data to make decisions with, from achieving that. And so just as we wrap this up, you can absolutely the photo analyzer is going to be a huge help to everybody, because you're going to be able to, you know, you're just going to be able to hold the person accountable right then when they're doing the checklist to fix the issue. And that's going to take so much of the burden off of all of the corporate staff above the stores, from trying to get these guys to do their stuff. But these other tactics that I mentioned here as well, you know, using third-party auditors to confirm checklist compliance, putting checklist compliance into your bonus structure, you know, making sure that there's, like, if you want, having an additional form to fill out, just to show that you recognize that you missed the thing. And then obviously all of the great data that's in the system as well. All those things can help you get a more successful checklist program. And that in turn is going to increase your operational readiness, your safety, your compliance, and that's going to lead to better shifts, better speed of service, increased sales, increased profits, and happier customers. And hopefully happier employees as well too. So that's kind of my presentation for today. If you have a question, just feel free to type it into the chat. And I'm going to say thank you for coming. And I will be sending this video out to everybody. And we appreciate you being clients. And like I said, the photo analyzer is like 10, maybe hopefully 10 days away or so, to a point where I can start showing you what it looks like and how it works. And I'm going to start doing some training meetings on that here very shortly, so I can teach you guys how to write your business criteria. And then as soon as it gets launched, we're going to give everybody, we can give some people some credits so they can start playing with the analyzer and testing photos in their own organizations. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you. See ya.